Hello and welcome back. I'm Lee Johnson, and this is my reading of my old Abramelin Journal. Abramelin Journal. I'm going to just say Abramelin because that's how I know it. Part 3. If you're wondering why, if you're watching these in sequence and you're wondering why I haven't changed my clothes since last time, it's because this is still the same day for me. Okay, so I'm going to just carry on with the reading. Okay, so we go on to the 5th of December 2010 at 9:05 p.m. and it's titled Taking It In. It in capitals. I'm not sure why. I'm sure we'll get to it. Because I feel it's a good idea to outline the actual practices and the method of using them now, I think we should get that out of the way so we can get into the journal bits more specifically. Taking on the name is a form of Hebrew or Kabbalistic prayer called a yichud. In this form of prayer, you actually use various permutation of the ineffable name and bring them into your body. That being, you bring God, Yahweh, into your body. This promotes many things, including good health and a strong connection with all things and the energy that flows around you. However, if you start to get a God or Messiah complex, and hopefully someone will tell you before it is too late, and hopefully you will listen, then stop the practice immediately. There is nothing worse than someone who thinks they are here to save the world from it themselves, and is a sign of a very unbalanced nature, and is very destructive. Now, the reason I am suggesting this practice is because of the manner of the work at hand. You are attempting to reach knowledge and conversation of the Holy Guardian Angel, but in order to do that, you need to connect with divinity. Taking on the name is the best method I have come across to do this, but if you prefer another, then go for it, as long as you connect with divinity. By divinity, I mean that which is everything and nothing. This is not a being or a spirit, excuse me, as many seem to consider God to be, but it is a force, a power that has always been, comes from nothing and manifests into everything. It is present in that which you can comprehend and that which is beyond you, present in every atom and the nothingness between them. It is everything and we are it. I don't care what anyone says. Every person believes in this force in some way or another. Even a hard atheist has to acknowledge that there is an energy which forms everything. This is not religion. It is just the simple fact that something exists which is a force, power, or energy that is present in all things. Whether you call it God or Bob, I don't care. But for the purpose of communication, I am calling it God, and I recognize it as Yahweh. Let me just give a side note here. When I say Yahweh, it's the actual pronunciation of the ineffable name. You'll probably recognize it with the 4 letters YHVH, or some people say Yod He Vav He. But the way I know to pronounce it, which Jacobus Swat taught me is the proper way to pronounce it, is Iaoe. So I'm going to continue using that pronunciation whenever I see the word. There was something else I wanted to mention. Oh, yes, we know what it is, it being divinity. Okay, so continuing. Okay, and then I go on to explain how to take on the name. I'm going to have to put that into a different video, and that's going to be a practice video, a demonstration video, so that'll be going onto my Patreon page as well. It will be in the text that I upload to my website, but as I said with the body of light practice, there's more explanation that needs to go into it, so I'd rather do a proper explanation, a proper demonstration, and a proper video of that, rather than just reading it here. But as I say, it'll be in the text that I upload. So if you just want to read it, up to you. Okay, so then we go on to the 8th of December 2010, 3:18 p.m, titled Time Zones. I have written and spoken about this quite a lot in the past few years, but I had better put it into a place where it can be referred to easily, as posts and emails have now been scattered. This is something that I was taught some years back by a high priest, and is very pertinent to the conversation related to the use of astral temples. To put it simply, light time is the flow of the clock as we know it in our physical world, whereas dark time is that which is experienced in the astral worlds. In other essays and chapters, I have written about the ideology of time and space being lateral and linear, as we see it in our everyday life. Relating to this discussion, light time can be viewed as linear, as we move from one moment to the other and record it in man-made seconds, minutes, hours, days, etc. Dark time is then lateral, as it does not move from moment to moment, but all things that have, are, and can happen are doing so in the very moment. In many ways, to try and explain this in words is impossible, because to say are doing so in the very moment implies that there is a moment in time, which is not true. There is no moment, there is no time, everything happens. Let me not go off on a tangent explaining linear and lateral time, however, as this discussion is specific to light and dark time. In this case, we can function in both, and we do. Whilst our physical body is moving around from here to there, getting up in the morning, going to work, going home, doing all the things we do during the day and in the evening, sleeping in bed, everything of the physical nature, our astral body is also functioning in the astral worlds, doing what it needs to do. However, in most cases, that astral body is moving with us, but at a different vibration. Imagine your body doing its daily activities, and then imagine that you have another body within that physical body. This second body is also doing those things your physical is doing, but the way it interacts with the environment is different, because it is functioning on a different level of existence. But how does this fall into the use of astral temples? When I was taught about this concept, it was because we were working as a group in an astral temple. We would do rituals in the temple and would all meet and do our part. These rituals were very powerful. What a lot of people can't make sense of, though, is that we continued with our normal life whilst we were doing these rituals in dark time, and the rituals would span over maybe a week or more of what we would consider light time. If you are working by yourself in the astral temple, then working in dark time, you could in fact do an entire working in what would be a few seconds of light time. In fact, the ritual you may be planning has already been done, and has been done in many different ways by you. Confused yet? Think in terms of parallel lives. When you come to a fork in the road, you make a decision to move along one of the forks in the path, rejecting the other option or options, right? Well, you might think you make that decision, but in fact, you make both or all decisions. And parallel lives split off and follow those other paths. So when you sit down to do your ritual, the motions you go through, which you consider to be time-related, are not. And all the manners in which you could have performed the ritual are performed in your various parallel lives. But when working in the astral temple, you are working in dark time, which means that there is no time. If this still isn't making sense, it probably will when you start to work in your astral temple. You will probably find that the time it takes to enter the temple, do your work and come back may seem like 30 minutes, for example. But when you look at your watch or the clock, only a couple of minutes have gone by. For some people, the opposite may be the case, where the half an hour that you feel you were in the temple actually ends up being 2 hours in the physical world. Incidentally, if you are someone who feels they can't astral project, don't worry. You can still do this work, as you are not required to do any form of conscious astral projection. So read on. All will be explained in due course. Just read the last entry and then I'll end it here. So this is the 9th of December 2010 at 8:41 a.m. titled Noise Reduction. Just a side note here quickly. At the time I was doing this, I was actually living in an old church. So when I speak about the old church, you know what I'm talking about. Living in an old church, I have found that noise carries quite a lot. This has made it a little difficult at times when doing rituals, as I have to ask for the TV to be turned down, and where my temple room is placed, a lot of noise carries in from the outside through the openings at the top of the bell tower. I bet Abraham didn't have TV and cell phone problems to contend with. Quite often this isn't too much of a problem though. As mentioned, I just get the TV turned down, switch the phone off, and my work is usually done in the evenings, which are usually quieter. Plus, I have managed to block out a lot of sound and keep focus on what I am doing. However, having to do the Abramelin operation twice a day has brought up some difficulties in the morning. Firstly, sound carries down in the morning and people are leaving for work, etc. So there is a lot of commotion. But my family is also asleep at the time I have planned to do my morning work. Unless I wake the household up every day, I have to find ways to do things quietly. The largest challenge is the meditation and defining sacred space. The mother breath is not a hassle as you breathe the sounds, so it is quiet, but when you need to hum loudly and then chant in a circle, the volume goes up. The solution here is to whisper. Now this is a little problematic with the humming, but if you practice it, you will find you can breathe out, hum in your head, and you will still feel the tingling or vibration in your body when doing the tuning and turning and pour breathing through the hands. Creation of sacred space is then all done with a whisper. In fact, it is often very effective. I say whisper instead of saying the words in your head because your head can actually distract you with the silence. Then comes the problem of moving into the astral temple. For this, you do need silence or something that won't distract you. The noises you hear around you are too much of a distraction because it could be relatively quiet, maybe a muffled drone somewhere, which you can accustom yourself to. But suddenly one of the neighbor's kids shouts, and you may as well call it a day, because it yanks you out. To solve this, I would suggest music or drumming. Don't choose music that you find the need to sing along to, or to even pay attention to. Get something that is monotonous, a continuous rhythmic beat. Trance music is probably a good choice here, as long as it continues for about half an hour without suddenly changing into a different rhythm. Maybe you can take a sample and loop it. There are some good sound editing software programs out there for free that can do a simple task like this. Audacity is one. You could use nature sounds, chanting, or drumming CDs, but you will need to experiment for a while to find the right one for you. That one that doesn't draw your attention, as your attention needs to be focused on the work. And I'm going to end this reading here now, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers.